This is Dirk Twine, and I'm about to conduct an audio interview with Dr. Joel Wallach, nutritionist, researcher, scientist, and pathologist. Dr. Wallach is one of a few individuals that has received more than one nutritional health claim against the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. That is just a small portion of the many accomplishments in health and wellness by Dr. Wallach as he continues his crusade to reshape the healthcare system in the United States. Hello, this is Dirk Twine speaking with Dr. Joel Wallach, the mineral doctor. Today, Dr. Wallach and I will discuss athletes and exercise. But first, I would like Doc to start and share with us a little bit about his educational background and his clinical experience with nutrition.
Thank you, Dirk. The thing that makes my view different on health, particularly for athletes, is that I was an athlete. In high school, I wrestled and I played football. Was on the track team, played soccer, so I was an athlete, plus I did a lot of physical work on the farm. My first classes were in agriculture. I was an agricultural student, studied the health of livestock, what it took to do that. My minor was in field crops and soils, learned about soil and plant nutrition, became a veterinarian, and began to treat animals with what I'd learned in the agricultural classes. Yeah, I worked a lot actually with draft horses that did work and had different requirements than what I call pet horses, where you probably had a poor horse, you rode them once a year kind of thing, whereas opposed to a draft horse with plowed field and pulled wagons and things like that, they needed more. And there was signals when they weren't getting everything they need, called cribbing, which we can talk about. And then became a pathologist, a comparative pathologist, doing both autopsies on animals and humans. And then, of course, I became a physician. And in my residency days in 1978, so for 35 years I've been a practicing physician. Deal a lot with professional athletes of all sports, Olympic athletes, college athletes, high school athletes, grade school athletes, professional athletes, and have a sense of what they need. So that's my background. And I'm happy to say that we've been able to prove that with our supplementation program we can help them increase performance, and we're looking for them to be 100 years old instead of an average of 62.
Yeah, well, I've known you for a while, Doc, and you got a lot more credentials than that. You're being very modest, but what I know of you, you're an author of nearly a dozen books on health and nutrition. You're a pathologist. You've done some work in genetics, biomedical research, many years of clinical work. You've just done so many things. I like to call you a super scientist, Doc.
Thank you.
When I tell people about you, I say Dr. Wallach is a super scientist. He's just done so many things, and I think your very background allows you to help so many different people and to know things and to solve problems that other people can't solve. And I think that one-sided view that many people have, I like to think of you similarly to me in terms of by profession. I'm an engineer, and engineers by profession, we solve problems. And when I moved into the natural health arena, what I did was I used my engineering training to help me solve health problems. And so for me, I don't care how the problem is solved. I just want to get it solved. And so if that means using nutrition or using acupuncture or biology or any modality, I'm going to use it to help my customer or client get better or help myself get better. So I'm not prejudiced in one way or another. I'm just a problem solver just like you.
Well, that's very good, because if you're prepared to solve the problem first and worry about the method later, as long as it's all legal and ethical,
absolutely,
and so forth, we're on the same page.
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit more, Doc. You said you played some sports. I believe you even played at a college level for a while.
Yes, I actually wrestled for the University of Missouri for 2 years until I was accepted into veterinary school and got married all in the same year. So that's
priorities changed.
Yeah, priorities changed, so I had to give up something. So rather than giving up my new wife, I gave up the wrestling. I was too small. I weighed 123 pounds. I wrestled 123 pounds, so couldn't play football. But in high school, I played middle linebacker for 4 years, lettered as a middle linebacker, 123 pounds. I played pulling guard on offense because we played both offense and defense back in those days at 123 pounds, and I learned how to take down 200-pound players who were either running backs or on offense. I was able to take back linebackers and tight ends and things like that, even at 123 pounds. And I never got hurt, and that was because I supplemented very heavily from the time I was 9.
One of the things that we know that at a high school level, collegiate, or even pro level, all athletes are in danger of early death and injury. Each year we see and we seem to hear about the death or the serious debilitating injuries that occur in athletes at all ages, before, during, and even after performing. Let's talk about that a little.
Okay, well, a lot of people have an erroneous idea that exercise is good for you.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's an erroneous idea. It's a myth that exercise is good for you. You have to add another sentence. Exercise without supplementation is suicide, while exercise with supplementation can be optimally healthy. And the reason is this, and most people don't realize it, but when you sweat, you put yourself in danger, whether it's from a trade, like being a roofer, working in a factory where it's 120 degrees in there because you got blast furnaces going, you're sweating. When you sweat, you're not sweating out water, you're sweating out a soup that contains all the nutrients floating around in your blood. If you're just drinking, people say, well, take water and rehydrate. Well, the soup you're sweating out has all these nutrients in it, and you're just replacing it with water, rehydrating, which is not bad, but you're leaving out even greater importance. You're leaving out these nutrients you're sweating out. And so the people who die suddenly usually die of one of two things, either a ruptured aneurysm, either in the brain, the heart, someplace else in the body, aorta, or they die more commonly, I think, of a cardiomyopathy heart disease, which is caused specifically by a selenium deficiency. They had the good fortune, if you will, to being on a project in Qishan Province, China, where my wife and I were able to do 1,200 autopsies on kids under the age of 10 who died of cardiomyopathy heart disease, a selenium deficiency. And this is one of the more common causes of sudden death in athletes from all sports. And tragically, it's something that's easily supplemented with, and you can prevent cardiomyopathy heart disease. And every time an athlete dies of cardiomyopathy heart disease, the cardiologists all come out and say, see, this is proof positive we need more electrocardiograms before these guys play sports. Well, they're not going to pick it up. You can take an electrocardiogram 1/10 of a millisecond before you die of a cardiomyopathy heart attack, and the electrocardiogram is going to be normal. They really don't understand, and it's a crime. It's a felony that they allow these kids to play without complete supplementation, including extra selenium, for cardiomyopathy heart disease. Also, we know that ruptured aneurysms are caused by a copper deficiency because you get a breakdown of the elastic fibers in your arteries. And when your blood pressure is going up because you're exerting physically, if you don't have the right and healthy elastic fibers in your arteries and veins, you get varicose veins, you get aneurysms, you get hemorrhoids, which are just varicose veins in a funny place. And usually when people die of a ruptured aneurysm, it's either in the brain, coronary artery, or aorta. And these are caused by simple deficiencies of copper. And so those two, when you look at our sports drink Rebound, it has 100 nutrients, including copper and selenium. There is very high, high profile sports drinks that only have 2 nutrients in them. Many of them have 4 or 5 or 6, but the most high profile ones have 2 nutrients in it. So you're 88 short, and that's why we have so much breakdown of tissues. And the sad part about this, Dirk, is people take the drinks that have these nutrients in it, 2 nutrients. Let's say they collapse on the court because they have an ACL problem. They have an anterior cruciate ligament that's stretched or torn. They get a torn meniscus in their knee. They get a blown out disc in their back. The doctors, and there's always the sports medicine doctors associated with all these teams are always orthopedic surgeons. So they're like a carpenter. Everything looks like a nail, right? Well, we got to run them in and do surgery. So they run them in, they do the surgery, then they send them to the gym to do power training, more sweating, to build muscle around that joint to try and hold it together, and then they send them back out to play. Well, that pattern has resulted in the average lifespan of professional athletes. When you add all sports combined together, professional athletes is 62. Professional football players, the average lifespan is 51. These are actual studies. This is actual data. This isn't me. This is actual studies.
Unbelievable.
And you take a librarian who sits in an air-conditioned laboratory on their duffs, doing nothing, no exercise. Their average lifespan is 87. Okay, so they live 25 years longer than an athlete. If exercise is supposed to be all that good, why are the athletes dying so young? That's because they're sweating out the nutrients and just replacing them with water or Arizona tea or something like that.
And I think my understanding that the primary purpose of exercise is to strengthen the heart and increase circulation. It has nothing to do with longevity, bottom line, in terms of overall longevity.
I don't know. Doctors will tell you that it will, lengthen your life, make you healthier and live longer. But when you come down and look at the statistics, that's a myth. It's not true.
Yeah. So other than the increasing circulation and strengthening the heart, what other benefit do you have from exercise?
Well, it depends. If you're selling Nike shoes, it's a big benefit.
What I'm saying personally on a physical level.
Well, one of the other myths associated with exercise, Loyola School of Medicine in Chicago came out in January 2009 and said that exercise won't make you lose weight because you sweat more and there's a deficiency of certain nutrients that cause you to eat so much and gain weight. Well, if you're missing these nutrients and then you're out there exercising, trying to burn off calories, you're sweating, you're burning off more of those nutrients, and so you can't. And
I know you have. I've heard hundreds of people say, I exercise, I go on these starvation diets, I do all these things, and I can't lose weight.
Yeah.
No matter how much I exercise, I can't lose weight.
That's because they're sweating out these nutrients and they're hungry and they eat more.
Oh, my goodness. Well, how about the weekend warrior, Doc? The husband or wife that plays in the tennis league, the 10K road race that people run every now and again. How about the group of housewives that go for a walk every day and sweat? How do they compare to people that are more active, the high school athlete, the collegiate and pro athlete? What do they need to deal with?
Well, somebody like you get the housewives getting together and walking around the block, that's reasonable exercise, right?
Okay.
For somebody who's not supplementing.
Okay.
You take high-profile athletes, you notice that the ones who die suddenly are always the star of the team.
Yes.
Is never the guy sitting on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
Is the one who's sweating the most and exerting the most because they're sweating, they're losing all these nutrients. Or the ones sitting on the bench are not sweating as much, or not exerting as much. So when you look at the percentages of the athletes who die suddenly, it's always the top athletes, it's always the stars, it's the first-string players. They are putting out effort, they're sweating. On the weekends when everybody else is watching TV, they're out there shooting baskets and kicking the ball and running, trying to get as good a shape as they can because they want those scholarships and they want those invitations. They want to be scouted out and found, and so they can be drafted by some professional team. And I urge them to supplement with the 90 essential nutrients appropriate for their body weight so they can just get the platform of the 90 essential nutrients, 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 essential amino acids, 3 essential fatty acids. It's just to live if you're just sitting there doing nothing. And then to use our Rebound as a nutrient replacer instead of the others in the market like Gatorade and Powerade and Arizona tea and just water by itself. It's imperative to use this wonderful product that we put together to make sure that athletes from all levels, whether in the Pee Wee League or the Pop Warner Leagues, all the way up to sort of junior high school, the college athletes, Olympic athletes, professional athletes, people who deal with the military, and policemen who do high physical activity. I deal a lot with military personnel and policemen and sheriffs. Navy SEALs are amongst my favorites because they get injured, jumping out of airplanes and scuba diving and charging against machine gun nests and blowing things up. Half the time they blow themselves up and all that kind of stuff. So I get to see a lot of these kind of people, and they do very well with supplementation for rehab. They take people that are told that they're done. They're partial quads, I guess they call them. The partial quads are paralyzed from the neck down. They say you have less than 8 years to live when you're in this type of injury. And within 3 years, they're actually winning awards for clay pigeon shooting with a 12-gauge, with a 12-gauge shotgun.
Wow. Because
they have great eye-hand coordination where before they couldn't lift their arms.
Wow.
It's amazing what nutrition can do, yeah.
So when we look at professional, collegiate, high school athletes, we look at weekend warriors, the rate of supplementation, is it the same, or should the higher level you are, should you add even more? I know you usually talk about supplementing per 100 pounds of body weight, but should the professional athlete or the collegiate athlete go beyond that?
Oh, absolutely. For instance, all athletes have to protect their joints and their disc between their back and their cartilage and ligaments and tendons, connective tissue, muscles. And so The basic program, the basic 90 essential nutrients, will do that for a person who's just sort of sitting there walking, right? But if you want to protect your joints extremely well, better than the average bear, so to speak, you have to supplement with a secret sauce for cartilage, ligaments, tendons, connective tissue, and disc, which we have. And we call that the Healthy Bone and Joint Pack. And you do that. If you do that according to body weight, you will protect yourself as a high output athlete. And of course, you want to use the rebound as a nutrient replacer, because you're not just sweating out water, you're sweating out a soup with all these nutrients in it. That's a very easy concept to think about. And so once you train an athlete, gosh, you're sweating out all these nutrients, why wouldn't you replace them instead of just drinking water? It's kind of like if you have an oil leak in your car, the oil will keep showing up in your driveway in your house. You say, I better check. And you say, man, I'm a quart low, so you put a quart of water in there.
Not smart.
Yeah, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that to your car, right? And so why do you do that to yourself?
So let's look at something else. And I was thinking about people that, although they're not quote-unquote athletes, but their occupations mimic professional athletes. Carpenters, landscapers, construction workers in general. All of these people, even a chef in a restaurant, somebody that's, for 12, 14 hours, they're running from one end of the restaurant to the other. There are hot ovens over hot stoves. They're literally mimicking the lifestyle of a professional athlete. How should we treat them, Doc?
Yeah, physiologically they are. Even farmers throwing bales of hay and all that kind of thing. Anytime you're sweating, if you're sweating, you are at the same danger as a professional athlete because you're sweating. Sweat is not water. Sweat is a soup of all the known essential nutrients. So you must supplement very seriously with the 90 essential nutrients. And if you're sweating, I would use the Healthy Bone and Joint Pack and then use the Rebound. I would say 4 to 6 servings a day, and you'll be amazed at how good you feel. You'll rest better. You'll be less susceptible to injuries. A couple of months ago, I was going up an escalator at the airport at Boston Logan Airport, and my briefcase, which has a long handle, got stuck in the machinery there. The wheels, I guess, got stuck in the machinery, and it literally catapulted me backwards. Now, I went down 100 feet.
Wow.
I'm going head first 100 feet. And all these people on the escalator, they're looking up, their mouths are open, they're kind of screaming and yelling. I'm going by them like a rocket. And I hit the bottom, and I bounced up, brushed myself off, and came back up the escalator. And all these TSA guys come running. Are you okay? Do we need to call someone? No, get away from me. Because, I'm 73 years old. Now, how many 73-year-old people could fall 100 feet on moving iron? I can show you the claw marks on my thigh because those metal steps, it clawed my thigh muscle because I didn't roll out of the way fast enough. It clawed my thigh muscle and my shoulder, and you can see the scars that it left on me by cutting through my meat. But didn't break any bones, didn't tear any tendons and ligaments. Do you know the impact that was? It was like getting hit by a car going 40 miles an hour, right?
That's something amazing.
Isn't it amazing? And I gave my lecture that night like nothing ever happened.
So the years and years of supplementation is the key to that.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So let me ask you something about, let's compare these types of people we just talked about, the carpenters, the landscaper, the construction worker, to the high impact activities of a professional athlete, a collegiate athlete. What other precautions will the athlete have to take that, say, a carpenter, although very active and sweating a lot, he's simply out there using a nail gun these days as opposed to a hammer and cutting wood and doing those kind of things. He's sweating a lot, but he's not doing any high impact activities. So let's compare those kinds of people.
Well, first of all, the basic rate of loss of nutrients will be the same. Sweat is sweat. Okay. Now, the high impact stuff, that's going to add extra wear and tear to those joints. And so I would add more of our secret sauce, if you will, that actually supports maintenance, repair of cartilage, ligaments, tendons, connective tissue, disc between the vertebrae, bone matrix, and bone itself. And so that's why I'd go with professional athletes, high school athletes, university athletes, Olympic athletes. I would go with the Healthy Bone and Joint Pack because it's got the secret sauce to maintain and repair cartilage, ligaments, tendons, connective tissue. as opposed to somebody who's sweating in a sauna. They don't have that impact in the cartilage and ligaments and connective tissue.
So, Doc, what category would muscle?
I like the extra selenium. I would throw selenium in there.
But I'm saying in terms of the areas of the body that you named, in terms of the tendons, ligaments, connective tissue, so where would that muscles be considered?
Well, muscle is kind of held to the bone by tendons.
Okay.
Bones are held together with bone to bone, or held together by ligaments.
Because it made me think about pull muscles and strain muscles. That's why I thought about that.
Well, sure. When you have pulled muscles and you strained muscles and cramps in your muscles, this is always due to nutritional deficiencies, always. And if you are properly nourished, the human body can stand an enormous amount of wear and tear impact as long as you're getting the raw materials for it to repair itself and maintain itself. And the shortcomings, again, come when you look at what these athletes drink. They pop the top off these bottles of water and they'll guzzle some water. And when they do that, so they're in danger there. Each year in America, we lose about 1,000 young athletes from water intoxication. Because what happens is when you, let's say you drink a couple of quarts of water very quickly, it will dilute out your potassium floating around in your blood, and your heart will stop when you don't have enough potassium. They die from cardiac arrest from a water intoxication, and the doctors don't understand that. And they say, oh, we checked an autopsy and he died of cardiac arrest. But why did he have cardiac arrest? Well, we don't know. Well, did you test the potassium levels? No, go back. Well, they're zero. Well, that's why his heart stopped. But why was there zero? I don't know. Well, did he drink water before he died? Well, let's go look at the film. Sure enough, he's taken 2 quarts of water and diluted out his potassium.
Let me talk also about some other things. I was just thinking about the short-term effects of these deficiencies and the long-term effects, because many times athletes will be injured. They'll sprain an ankle, pull a muscle, and they'll be out of action, say, for a few weeks. That's just a short-term thing.
That is correct. Cramps is a very good example of a short-term effect. You'll see a game stop because the star player gets a cramp or a pulled hamstring or something. They send out the trainers and they massage them, and they put ice on it, and hopefully by the next quarter of the game or next half of the game, they can get them back in the game. And that's caused by a muscle cramp. This is mineral deficiencies, very specifically mineral deficiencies. And so these things are totally eliminatable. You think about it. Here these guys are getting paid these people are getting paid $5 or $10 million a game. If I was the owner of that team, I would make sure that every athlete had perfect nutrition, perfect supplement programs, perfect rest, perfect everything. Because I've got an investment of $100 million every year on that athlete.
Absolutely. I remember back in the 70s hearing about some professional athletes that would smoke cigarettes on their water break. Just unbelievable, some of the crazy things that go on.
Bad role model.
Absolutely. But the short-term things, and as an athlete myself, I remember you will have these minor injuries and you will continually play, you will continually work out. But my question is to you, those things are adding up. And so long-term, 20, 30 years from now, we're looking at a person.
If you live that long.
If you live that long. That's going to have some serious problems because the body's been screaming at you, hey, your knee is injured because you're lacking some nutrients and you're not doing some things you need to do.
Exactly.
It's not just because you exercise.
Well, that knee is acting like the red warning light in the dashboard of your car. And that red warning light comes on. Does that red warning light damage the car? No. It's telling you that there's damage going on because there's not enough oil, not enough coolant. There's something bad going on. That red warning light is, as the name implies, is warning you to do something. The same way when you get a cramp in your muscle, you get a pulled hamstring, you get tendonitis, you get bursitis, you get torn meniscus, you get a broken cartilage or ruptured disc. These are all red warning lights. At the level of activity that you're performing at, you're not getting enough supplements to maintain yourself. And you're going to have a game at a hot day. You're going to be doing doubles in August, getting ready for the football season, and you're going to drop dead. And they say, well, he didn't have anything wrong with him. Well, how did he drop dead suddenly? Well, you go back and you look, he'd had tendon and ligament problems 4 years before, had bone spurs 6 years before, had muscle cramps during the practice earlier that year. And so all these sort of things that seem relatively minor, that you can ice yourself up, put ice bags on your joints and take a Aleve or aspirin or something and have the pain go away and play tomorrow. Although they seem relatively minor, they're the red warning light equivalent, because you could wake up dead the next morning because you didn't pay attention to that red warning light.
Oh, this is so unbelievable that of the millions of athletes that we have in America, that this is really not known. and it's taken so lightly. I think the sports drinks that's sold on TV and in convenience stores that are simply giving people a little burst of sugar so that they can get back out there and do a little bit more are really doing them severe harm. And many times I speak to church groups and other organizations, and I always share with them the fact that I've been an athlete for a very long time, and I always say, however, although I've been an athlete, I recommend it, unless you're professional, collegiate, or Olympic, or maybe even in the military, to never run, to never do high impact activities. If you want to exercise, some walking, biking, swimming, some low impact activities on a reasonable amount of time, 3 or 4 days out of the week for an hour or so, it's great for you. It's great for you in terms of long term, as I said, in terms of strengthening the heart, increasing circulation, lowering blood sugar levels, a lot of positives. But you don't want to do that high impact stuff, and you don't want to really stress the body unnecessarily when you're not getting paid for it. We've been so convinced by people that don't know anything about health that we should do certain things that are just detrimental, and long term it's going to hurt you.
You're exactly right, Dirk. Exercise without supplementation is suicide.
I like to go back, if I can, just briefly touch on the fact that personally I've been an athlete, I guess, for almost 50 years, from my days of Little League baseball and football, on to middle school playing basketball in the Catholic Youth Association League, and then on to high school playing 3 sports, basketball, football, and track, and on to college as a college basketball player for 4 years. And then over a 10-year period after college, I fought on a national level in martial arts. Actually, I got to compete against Olympic competition, went to the Olympic Training Center. And so I've really been around athletics for a very, very long time, and I've had a zillion injuries. I mean, I can't probably touch a spot on my body that I haven't injured. And I just wish that I knew what I knew today in terms of both the recovery time, the healing, and all other aspects of being healthy that I could have done if I knew just a tiny bit of what we're talking about today. And I just really appreciate you for all that you've done. I met you way back in 1994, Doc, but that wasn't early enough.
Well, thank goodness you're still with us. Appreciate you. And it's wisdom you're passing on to people who have less experience than you and I. We don't want them to go through the pain of the experience, right? We want them to benefit from the wisdom, and they can make the proper changes and adjustments and additions to their programs to avoid all the terrible things that we've seen happen to others.
Okay, and I'd like to end with saying that I hope that we've touched and reached enough people that they can utilize the information to effectively help themselves and to help others. And I'm closing and personally thanking you for helping me, but also the thousands of people that are athletes and non-athletes around the United States and around the world.
Well, thank you for your great work, Dirk. Appreciate you. Love you. God bless you.
Thank you, Doc. This CD is not intended to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any diseases. It is your responsibility to consult your personal health care practitioner prior to beginning any type of health and wellness program. Also, ask the person that gave you this CD for more information about Dr. Wallach and his nutritional products.
And definitely check out my book, Fake Diseases. It covers all of the major topics that come up, like birth defects, blood sugar problems, bone and joint problems, cancer, autoimmune problems, and more. And it's on Amazon for just $9.99. And the audiobook read-along version is free here on YouTube, and the link for that is in the description of this video. And of course, make sure to check out our food page, Notice Foods, that's on YouTube, and at Notice Foods on Instagram. We have a lot of content up there teaching you how to cook without the bad foods that Dr. Wallach describes, and Dr. Glidden's 12 bad foods, all of that, all of the rules that you need to know. And we have experienced chefs and bakers who will answer the questions in those inboxes. Definitely get yourself a copy of Dr. Wallach's cookbook. This is basically a textbook teaching you everything you know about how to cook without the bad foods, particularly oil and gluten and all of the other problematic things on the list. This is 300 pages stuffed full of recipes, every traditional recipe that you could think of, and modern dishes without the bad foods that they're usually made from. And I've also published a book in response to some of Dr. Wallach's criticisms, including the major articles that have been written against him on the internet. So if you are a Dr. Wallach fan or a longevity distributor, I definitely recommend having this book in your toolkit. And all of my books, audiobooks, and links are available on my website, noticebooks.org. And if you'd like to talk to us directly, you can call us. Actually, you can call Judy. She's downriver Detroit. You can call from anywhere in the US, Canada, Mexico, UK, Australia, New Zealand, any other country. You want to email us or send us a DM on whatever app that you want to contact us on. Instagram is super convenient for us. And that's for any sales or product information in those countries, or any distributor information.